Welcome to another episode of the Growth League podcast. I'm here with my special guest, Tracey Panek from Levi's. You're a historian. What's your title?
Historian and Director of Archives.
So that's not a title that you see a role. You have the unusual advantage of having this legacy and this history. Tell me a little bit about what your mandate is, as the way at least you understand it.
Mm-hmm. It is an unusual role. I'll give you that. Yes, there aren't many who do this. So I'm a trained historian, and I manage the archives. So the company has an amazing repository of Levi's pieces from the oldest, the date to 1873 that we know of, up to new collaborations. So I manage that, and the way I weave in my historical training is I do what you would expect, research, writing, but I do it and I try to make it relevant. I think that's probably the key for what I do. I am not a historian who works at a museum or I teach. What I do has to be relevant and useful enough for the company to spend the resources not only on me, but for the archives space. You know, we have a San Francisco real estate is not cheap for the museum. We have a little museum, and we believe that our history and heritage is such an important part of the brand that I'm part of the marketing team.
Yeah. Why was there a decision made once upon a time to latch on to this history and legacy and archive? And what does that mean in terms of an advantage for a brand like Levi's as compared to others that don't have that?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I can tell you exactly when. The archives, a professional archives, was set up in 1989 when then CEO Bob Haas, who was the last member of the Haas family, they are descendants of Levi himself. So Bob is the great-great-grandnephew of Levi. So you got to think about that.
Carry the one.
And one of the things that Bob recognized and believed is that the company's history is important, not just to the company, but to society in general.
Right.
And he set up he hired the first historian, my predecessor, who was there for almost 25 years, and provided resources so that we could build the archives, so that the company had an in-house repository to pull from for stories, for design inspiration, for trademark protection, for marketing, all of those things that we do and others take advantage of. Others, I should say, they don't take advantage of. Others don't. We have an advantage because we have those resources available.
Right. But unless the leadership is committed to leveraging them in the way, they just become relics of the past and memories, right? But I was listening to your session earlier today, and the depth and the richness of these stories, the Georgia story. Can you tell us a little bit about that? I know you already just shared.
Yeah,
but
I love that one. So one of the things I do is I answer questions primarily inside the company, but I get a lot of requests from people outside, fans who have Levi's. They found their grandparents' Levi's in the attic, or they purchased something at a thrift store. They want to know the date. They want to know anything I can tell about them. And from that relationship, it goes a little bit further because I'll share that information, and then I'll say, well, what's your story? Where do they come from? Who is wearing them? And this happened in the case of a man who got in touch. His name was Mindo from Tbilisi, Georgia. And I answered some questions of him and then tapped him for, hey, what's your story? What were Levi's like during the Cold War where you lived? And he shared some amazing stories, one of which was about a neighbor whose young son traded the family cow for a pair
and the visuals on the screen were so anyway.
Yes, they were great, but it's you don't have to make these stories up. They come from the real, from people's lives. They're true stories, and okay, we might embellish them, or we might have really lovely looking actors, but the stories themselves come from real people.
Yeah. So these storylines, how essential are they as a fabric of pun intended, as a fabric of Levi's go-to-market strategy today? You wouldn't typically make that mental connection, but what role do stories and storytelling and the integrity around that practice, how is it leveraged today for,
Well, to keep on with the pun there, it's interwoven into the fabric, the denim.
We can keep it going. I got 2 young daughters. They're going to hate this.
No,
Dad jokes.
I like to say that our history it's a shared history. It's not only the company itself, but what happens organically outside. In what ways do we show up in culture? In what ways have people worn our products? Where are they wearing them? What were they doing? Why was it that Levi's and blue jeans were worn on top of the Berlin Wall when it fell?
Yeah.
Because there's such symbolism to them. How does that happen? Why were they traded? So the cow story is one, but I've had other stories during the Cold War of people trading for cars, for motorcycles. It was like a currency. And those are the kinds of stories and shared history that we want to tap into, because we want people to be part of that story.
Totally. I mean, what's
part of the journey?
What's the alternative, right? You just sell blue jeans and you compete with everyone else who sells blue jeans. Yeah. But what do we know, right, about people? They buy emotionally and then they justify rationally with price point and fabric and whatever, right?
They do. But one thing that's unique about blue jeans is they're super personal, and denim in general. It's super personal. Someone wears them. In the case of Levi's, you can tell the story of a person from the wear and the marks on the jeans themselves. That doesn't happen with other products.
Tell us about the match.
Yes, I'll tell you about the match. It's one of my favorite little details. We have this great pair of Levi's. They were found in a Missouri chicken coop. And a woman reached out and said, my husband found these. We're renovating our farm. He was going to throw them away. And I said, nope, wait. She found me and got in touch, wanted to know a bit about a date. I told her, and anyway, we started this back and forth. We eventually acquired these Levi's, and one of the things that's remarkable about them is on the back right thigh are these, they look like stray marks, kind of like white marks.
Yeah.
They are matchstick strikes. And we know that the person was right-handed who wore them and smoked, because when you have raw denim, don't try this at home, but when when you have raw denim, you can go, it's stiff, and you can take a match, and on in this case, the back of a thigh, you can light your match and then light your cigarette.
I always thought that was so cool in the Westerns and in the movies. Like, then you try it at home.
Oh, yeah.
You're like, nah.
No, don't try it. But we have several pairs that have that strike on the back, and we know what it is. I'll tell you one other one that I love from the collection is we have a little small pocket. I'm often asked, what is that little small pocket on the right?
Yeah.
Why do you have it? Coins. My husband puts guitar picks in there.
Oh, really?
Condoms. We had an ad about that. It was actually created for a pocket watch, which was a common accessory in the 19th century. So some of our earliest pairs, you can see the pair and you can see the outline of a round pocket watch that was in there. So now we keep it because, it's part of maintaining this timeless design. But originally it was for a pocket. Nobody uses a pocket watch now, but
no, it's such an incredible, honestly, when I was watching the presentation, it was very impactful, because just based on some of the physical markings that you see on each pair, you can stitch together these stories. And if you have the benefit of being able to talk to the family or whatever ancestors, then you can stitch this thing together and it becomes way, way more than a product. So do you personally, how long have you been in the role?
10 years. This is my 10th year. Yeah.
Do you, I don't want to go too overboard, but do you feel a sense of responsibility in some regard?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I do. And a love and passion for not just the product, but for the people who've worn it, for the family, the Strauss family and their descendants who created it, and the global nature of it. I get the pleasure of being able to travel around. I just got back from Poland a few weeks ago. Learn more stories there. It's a very different story from America, but it's still a new and part of Levi's history to be able to learn those. So it's great.
What are some of the things being done right now intentionally by Levi's so that in 50 years from now, there's a story that originates today? Or is this just a benefit that we have looking backwards? How is it shaping who are we going to be as a brand going forward, so that the historian 50 years to now can
Has
maintain
those,
this?
yeah. Well, we first off, we have someone like myself, and we maintain an archives. So
Right.
we're regularly adding new pieces to the archives. They can be early pieces, like this chicken coop pair that came from World War II, or they can be a new piece. Yeah.
Right.
So, and we're always looking at what's out there. Darn it, we lost the bid on the Kurt Cobain jeans last year.
Man.
But we're looking for what's happening now,
That's
and what do we
culturally
want to?
relevant.
Yeah, and because we've dedicated resources to maintaining our archives and having someone like me
Yeah.
be able to do my work, that's the reason we can chronicle and document those stories and what's happening.
Do you run tours or anything like this? Like I'm just imagining, what did the
Yeah.
archives look like? Are they like big steel boxes and rows upon rows, and then you have a ledger system? Like this is fascinating for people, and I don't think that I think you know that.
Yeah, so we have an archives space. You come into the space. There's great big tables, and the reason we have the tables is because we host a lot of designers, and we pull out garments, lay them out, and they just study them. We have the blue wall. I call it the blue wall. It is a wall where we keep some artifacts on there, Levi's jackets that have been decorated over the years. Our famous Saddleman, which was our cowboy character we created in the 1930s. Got a few Saddlemen up there. And on the left side of the wall is a blue fireproof safe where we keep the oldest blue jeans in the world and other Levi's. The oldest product in there is 1873, 1874. We've got the oldest women's blue jeans, and that's what you come in and you see. So people naturally want to see what's in there. We have gloves, so we're professionally trained. We take care of our pieces. If you come in and have a chance to look at our pieces, you must wear the gloves. You will put your coffee over away, no pens, and you'll have a chance to be able to see pieces. Right behind that reading room, if you will, that's probably what they'd call it if you were in a public kind of an archives. We have a storage room big enough to house about 1,000 garment boxes. Yeah. Each of the garment boxes, and the garment boxes are archival boxes. Yeah. They are each contain about maybe 3 or 4 different garments that are wrapped in plain muslin. And because San Francisco has a great moderate temperature, yeah. we watch the temperature, but we don't have issues with humidity, and we also monitor for bugs. And bugs. Okay. Yes. So
because they would just eat them.
Moths. We had a moth infestation at one point. Not in that room, but
a nightmare.
Another one from some garments that came from a mine. But when you come in, you'll see the blue wall. You'll see my desk. You will see a whole bank of file cabinets. Those file cabinets have letters that our customers have written. They've got photographs. They've got our catalog collection. Yeah. So our earliest preserved catalog goes back to 1906, and before then, in the late 1800s, single double-sided flyers of our products. So you'll get to come in and see that. And I also should say we have a small headquarters museum.
Okay.
It's being renovated right now. Next year, it's expanding. It's going to be 3 times as big as it has been. And when you come into our headquarters, it's going to be open to the public. You can walk into the museum space. Yeah.
Well, the work you and your team are doing is just adding something so unique, a different layer to a marketing strategy. We think about marketing strategy today. It's like what tactical campaigns we can do, but you have this equity growing and this storyline that takes different shape and form over time, and brand new ones are coming. I mean, this is incredible. It's my second last question. Yeah. Why do you personally care about what's being done? Is this a paycheck? Or why do you care about the work you're doing?
So I grew up as a Levi's fan. I grew up in the shadow of the Rocky Mountains. I say that because the Rocky Mountains come way up north. I grew up in Salt Lake City, and here seeing them in Banff, it's amazing. But I grew up and we wore Levi's. Shrink to fit. I have 3 sisters. You would buy them a couple of sizes bigger and then wash them, and they would just fit you like a glove. So I had grown up wearing them. They were tough, but they also made you look good.
Right.
Especially your backside if you're a woman. You're like, these make me look good. And so when it came to to getting a job in an iconic American company for a brand that I knew and loved.
Yeah.
It was like the dream
No-brainer.
combination. Yeah.
So my last question is, we're here at the gathering. It's Thursday, right about noon, and you're heading out on a little adventure now. Your husband's going to pick you up. Tell
Am.
what has been, I mean, we're only halfway through the event. Any takeaways, anything that you felt?
Yeah. I've been surprised at the energy.
Okay.
I mean, there's just hopping. Just right outside from where we are, there's people. They're doing stuff. I was really blown away by the first session I saw, and some of, the speakers were pretty frank and talked about what's going on now, what's happening in the future, and on top of this gathering, we're in this amazing place.
Yeah.
So I've seen pictures of Banff and the hotel here, the Fairmont, and it's just amazing. So to be here, I got to put my warm clothing on, my gloves, because it's colder
We were
than I'm used
laughing
to.
because she was saying, I was like, what do you think? Well, it's cold. It's cold. And for us Calgarians, it's like, this is a summer
I know,
day.
we're soft.
But you're heading to Lake Louise, and it's not frozen yet. So you're going to have a great view.
I am so excited. Yeah. So I'm going to take a little detour with my husband. We've rented a car and we're just going to drive around the area and take advantage of this beautiful
Amazing.
Canadian landscape.
Well, keep doing your work. Keep shining a spotlight on why story and storytelling is not peripheral to a brand strategy. It's, I'm not going to say part of the fabric. It's woven in, right?
Yeah. Interwoven.
It's interwoven. Thank you so much for all the work, and it's great to meet you. And thanks for being a guest on the show.
My pleasure. Thanks, Caleb.
Thanks.